Guinness is going to have to create a new book. Why? Ukraine keeps pulling off the impossible, shattering records left and right as Russia crumbles. Vehicles are being destroyed at rates that Putin can't even fathom. Refineries burn all over Russia as Ukraine unleashes record numbers of attacks. The records stand, and they're ready to be broken again as Ukraine gets stronger. Russia hates all of this, but it can't do anything about it. We start with the logistics record, because this is a big one that will have a huge impact on every plan that Putin made for his spring and summer offensive. In a May 31st report, Euromaidan Press says that Ukraine set an all-time daily record for the number of Russian vehicles destroyed. That record was set on May 29th, and it stands at 483 of Russia's vehicles. Ukraine's general staff provided the details in a Facebook post where it noted that these vehicles are cars, trucks, and fuel carriers that typically operate behind the front lines to keep Russia's logistical operations ticking over. And just to add a little insult to this major injury, Ukraine also smashed a pair of Russian tanks and 7 of its armored combat vehicles. You could argue that this technically makes the record 492 vehicles destroyed. Ukraine will be happy with 483. There's more to this record. Ukraine has been breaking it multiple times in 2026, showcasing how effective it's become at dealing middle-range damage against Russia. And on the monthly side of things, we can now see just how much Ukraine's campaign has expanded. In an April 1st report, United 24 Media noted that Ukraine had destroyed 3,545 of Russia's military vehicles in 31 days. That month also saw Ukraine record its then record of 210 vehicles destroyed in a single day on March 27th. Fast forward to May and we see the numbers more than doubling. The daily figure we just shared is 2.3 times higher than the March 27th record, which is a phenomenal achievement for Ukraine. But hold the phone, as this video entered production, there was some breaking news. If you thought May 29th was bad for Russia, Ukraine only went and did it again to cap off May in style. On May 31st, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine shared another round of daily casualty figures. Putin would already be stinging after seeing that Russia had lost another 1,560 of its soldiers on that day. But if we quickly check the numbers for motor vehicles and fuel tankers, we see something remarkable: 524 down in a single day. It took Ukraine just 2 days to blow past the record it set on May 29th by 41 vehicles. What this means is that Russia's record vehicle losses on May 29th weren't a one-off. They're part of a pattern that Ukraine is purposefully creating that you're going to learn about very soon. Ukraine didn't just break its daily vehicle-shattering record in May. It absolutely destroyed its record for the monthly destruction of Russian vehicles. Military analyst Alexander Kovalenko says that Ukraine has destroyed 7,704 vehicles in May, with the total likely to exceed 8,000 by the end of the month. Even if we assume that 7,704 is where the figure will stay, that's 2.17 times higher than what we saw in March. And it also contributes heavily to Russia's total cumulative vehicle losses of 100,713 that have been recorded since Putin launched his invasion back in February 2022. This is an acceleration so sharp that it would make Usain Bolt proud. As Ukraine has been settling vehicle destruction records all over the place since March, it's almost as though there's some sort of campaign in place that is encouraging Ukraine's drone operators to target Russian vehicles in the near rear. We're being facetious. There is absolutely a campaign, and it even has a name: the Logistics Lockdown Program. On May 27th, Ukraine's Defense Minister Mikhailo Fedorov announced that the Logistics Lockdown Program had been officially launched, and the details tell us why we're now seeing Ukraine break records for destroying Russian vehicles. Fedorov has created the program to funnel more funding directly to units that are targeting Russian logistics behind the front lines. In its first phase, the program will deliver $113 million of funding directly to brigades that take out Russian depots, command routes, supply lines, and logistical assets, such as vehicles. The first transfers of cash had already been dispersed by the time that Fedorov announced the program. 2 days later, a new record was set. Coincidence? We think not. In the second phase, Ukraine's defense ministry intends to open a centralized tender system to help it acquire the types of middle-range strike systems that make breaking these sorts of records possible. Those tenders should start producing results by the summer, and it'll build on Ukraine having already quadrupled its shattering of Russian near-rear logistics and military infrastructure over the last few months. This is one of the most significant operational developments of the past few weeks. It's the formalization of what Ukraine wants to achieve: attacks at scale, greater ambition, the complete destruction of Russian logistics on a level that Putin could never have imagined. The Logistics Lockdown Program already resulted in a record within 2 days of it being made official, and we're willing to bet that the already insane May 29th record is going to be shattered at some point in the very near future. For now, we're seeing the impact on the ground in several ways. There's the direct impact, of course. It doesn't take a lot of effort to find Russian vehicles burning on the ground these days. The clearest sign of what Ukraine is doing comes from the land corridor that connects occupied Crimea and Donetsk, which has been forced into shutting down amidst a wave of Ukrainian mid-range strikes that are destroying so many of Russia's vehicles. The Manhush-Berdyansk road has been closed to all traffic as of May 31st, which means that Russia is denying access to the roads that it has occupied to its own people. Displaced traffic is being sent an alternative route on the coast that has quickly become jammed. And according to Forbes, Ukraine has been intensifying its strikes across all of the southern occupied territories, with the highlight being over 125 strikes conducted against the land corridor that connects Crimea and Donetsk. We don't have official confirmation that this is another record, but the sheer scale of those strikes compared to what we've seen before suggests that it is. It's no coincidence that Ukraine pulled off what Euromaidan press dubbed a fire show on this now closed stretch of highway that destroyed fuel tankers, trucks, and a trailer just days before. Stretches of road between Berdyansk, Jankoy, and Melitopol have also been targeted. These are just a handful of examples. We would be here all day if we listed every Ukrainian strike that led to this record-breaking month. But as the Russian vehicles burn and near-rear logistics are shattered, it's the problems on the front that create the real issues for Putin. Broken logistics create issues for troops, several of them in fact, starting with hampering Russia's attempts to send soldiers to the front lines. That's according to UKR Inform, which says that Ukraine's record-breaking strikes across the front lines and near-rear have made it incredibly difficult for Russia to transport personnel to the front. The outlet points to a May 27th report by the Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, which says, "Mid-range strikes are actively inhibiting Russia's ability to transport personnel to the front lines, as well as to supply and hold frontline positions, which would significantly reduce the number of additional reservists who could even get to the front lines, where they could impact Russian ground operations under current conditions." According to the ISW, Ukraine's clever use of drones to take out vehicles and logistical nodes is also giving it the tactical advantage in some regions of the front, which often sets the stage for the brutal counterattacks that Ukraine has been pulling off throughout the spring. So Russia's offensive is being made weaker and its defenses are crumbling. It also isn't doing great at transporting fuel around. We mentioned Ukraine destroying fuel tankers on the land bridge between Crimea and Donetsk. That's far from a random choice of targets. On May 22nd, the Moscow Times reported that the Kremlin-backed occupying authorities in Crimea had been forced to ration gasoline in the port city of Sevastopol, following a wave of Ukraine's strikes against logistical assets. Under these new restrictions, citizens are limited to buying 20 litres of gas per vehicle or container, which works out to about 5.2 gallons. The move comes as oil processing levels at Russian refineries have dropped to 4.69 million barrels per day, which is another record, as it's the lowest level we've seen since 2009. Ukraine may have a little something to do with that. Stick with us and we'll explain how another record that Ukraine has broken is contributing to Crimea's severe gasoline problems. What we're seeing here is the expansion of Ukraine's reach into the Russian rear. And while all of this is impacting Russia's ability to transport troops and ensure fuel is getting to civilians in places like Crimea, the real problem for Putin is on the front. Russian soldiers are dying in record numbers. And it's largely because of Ukraine's campaign against Russian logistics. We've already spoken at length about Ukraine breaking records for monthly casualties in 2026. Both March and April saw Russia lose over 35,000 of its soldiers. We don't have the figures for May at the time of creating this video, but the odds are good that they'll be even higher than those we saw during the previous 2 months. That will be another record broken, and it would be no surprise. In a May 29th report, Al Jazeera revealed that the combination of Russia's poor performance and Ukraine's devastating strategy has led to Russian losses tripling for every square kilometre of territory that is being taken in Ukraine. In 2025, the rate stood at 67 per square kilometre. Now it's 179 Russians dead or injured for each square kilometre that Russia takes in Ukraine. Records are being broken in blood. And there's so much more. We mentioned Sevastopol and its gasoline problems earlier. Much like every other issue we've highlighted for Russia so far, there is nothing coincidental about what's happening in Crimea. It's the direct result of Ukraine breaking yet more records. But before we get to that, if this is the kind of insight into the Ukraine war that you want to see, make sure you're subscribed to The Military Show. We break it down like this every week. So the gasoline problems and the other record. You can probably guess what we're about to say next. May saw Ukraine hit more of Russia's oil refineries and energy facilities than ever before, and that's causing severe problems for Putin on the fuel front. The details come from the infamous commander of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces, Robert Brovdy, who took to Telegram to announce what Ukraine achieved with its oil strikes in May. During May, the freedom-loving Ukrainian bird issued a fiery 18-plus age of majority to the occupier's oil refining industry, Brovdy declared in his theatrical way. The translation here is that Ukraine has hit at least 18 of Russia's refineries and energy processing plants in May, with several of those facilities being visited by Ukraine's flying sanctions multiple times. Brovdi even provides a list. Moscow, Saratov, Tuapse 5.0, Volgograd, Yaroslavl, Novorossiysk, Grushovaya, Syzran, Kostovo, Ryazan, Taman, Perm, Kirishi, Samara, Yaroslavl LVDS, Primorsk, Taganrog, Astrakhan and Orenburg gas processing plants, Brovdi says. We count 19 on that list, and you could even argue 23 if we count each of the Tuapse strikes separately. These strikes didn't just amount to a drone or two hitting the roofs of buildings. They were effective and devastatingly so. Brovdi declares that more than half of the facilities on his list were forced to suspend their operations at some point during May, which tells us that Ukraine isn't just hitting energy facilities, it's hitting critical parts of those facilities that need to be repaired before Russia can get back to the crucial business of churning out more processed oil products that it can sell or send to the front lines. Brovdi makes that clear with yet another of his dramatic statements as he says, "To stab the golden oil antelope is the main goal of this disco, because every barrel of black slurry is converted into Shahids, Calibers and Iskanders, and flies. May has delivered the record-breaking crescendo to a campaign against Russian energy that has been going on for a long time. In a May 22nd report, the Kyiv Independent said that Ukraine had hit Russian oil refineries 158 times up to that point. The number will be above 160 by now, and it's only going to grow higher. 24 of Russia's 33 major refineries have been targeted, most with repeated attacks, and Ukraine has scored hits against every oil refinery that is located in the European portion of Russia. Those further afield are going to become targets soon enough, as Ukraine has developed the capability to break distance records along with strike volume records. But we'll get to that in a moment. Ukraine shows no signs of slowing down its obliteration of Russian oil and gas. On June 1st, the Japan Times reported that the previous evening had seen Ukrainian drones strike targets all over Russia, including an oil pipeline pumping station, a fuel depot, and the Saratov oil refinery. You might remember that refinery as the second one on the list that Brovdi shared, so that's at least 2 attacks Saratov has had to absorb in May. That refinery isn't close to Ukraine either. Drones had to travel about 700 kilometers to reach it, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky revealed. But the real highlight came from the attack against the oil pumping station in the Kyiv region. Ukraine's drones traveled 1,300 kilometers to make that strike. That isn't quite a record. Ukraine's longest strike of the war so far is 1,750 kilometers. But it shows us that the expansion of Ukraine's drone campaign isn't limited to the front lines and the Russian rear in occupied Ukraine. It's happening all over, as Ukraine's drones hit deeper and harder than ever before. The impact is clear to see, especially in places like Crimea, where civilians are feeling the impact of the war not in death or injury caused by drones, but in the loss of essential fuel due to the shortages that Ukraine is creating. That fuel crunch, like Ukraine's drone strikes, is going to expand as long as Ukraine maintains the pressure. However, the bigger loss for Putin comes from the impact that Ukraine's record-breaking strikes are having on Russia's ability to export fuel products. In a June 1st report, Reuters revealed that Russia has banned aviation fuel exports until November 30th. This tells us that Russia is being forced to make some difficult choices. The country needs to sell fuel. Taxing the revenue generated by oil and refined products is what keeps billions of dollars flowing into Putin's war chest. But this fuel is also needed on the front. Take aviation fuel away from Russia's pilots and their long-range attacks against Ukraine disappear. Take it away from overseas buyers and the money starts drying up. Either way, you get the same result. Russia's war machine is weakened. That's the genius of Ukraine's strategy. Record-breaking drone strikes against Russian energy facilities are having a clear impact. Sticking with drones, we have one more record to share with you. On May 27th, United 24 media revealed that Ukraine had set another record with an FPV drone strike unlike any other that it's launched during the war so far. For context, FPV drones litter the front lines. They're supposed to be short-range drones that typically operate in the 15 to 20 kilometer range, and they're the key to the kill zones that Ukraine has created on the outskirts of territory that Russia wants to take. Now, the range limitations of these drones are basically a thing of the past. According to military analyst Serhiy Stinenko, Ukraine managed to pull off an engagement using an FPV drone that traveled a staggering 102 kilometers into the occupied territories. That's the mid-range being hit by an FPV drone. And Ukraine did it without using a mothership to bring the drone closer to its target. United 24 media says that the new record indicates how far Ukraine has progressed in terms of improving the power supplies, navigational systems, and long-range control stability in its FPV drones. And just to drive the point home, the target of this record-breaking FPV drone flight was a Russian vehicle. One record broken to contribute to another that would soon be broken. Ukraine is stacking up records like a millennial who just discovered vinyl. And now that it has FPV drones that can travel in the 100-kilometer range, we're going to see expanded kill zones and even more attacks against the Russian near rear, all of which feed into the many problems that Putin already has as he tries to push Russia's spring and summer offensive. We're going to leave you with a coda. It feels like the only record that Ukraine didn't manage to break in May was its long-range strike record, as we mentioned earlier. 1,750 kilometers is an impressive target to beat, to the point where it may feel like an impossible goal. It isn't. In a May 30th report, Euromaidan Press revealed that the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine has revealed that it now has access to drones that can travel as far as 3,500 kilometers. That means it's not just European Russia that is in danger. Far East territories as deep as the Siberian region of Krasnoyarsk have now become targets. Right now, this is a capability claim rather than a demonstrated strike range. But Ukraine has a habit of delivering on what it claims to be capable of. Watch this space. It may not be long before we're reporting on how Ukraine has left its 1,750 kilometer range record in the dust. All that Putin can do is watch as Ukraine breaks records and tears through Russia's logistics. We've mentioned the land bridge to Crimea already. The strikes that shut the bridge down are just part of a wider Ukrainian strategy to retake occupied Crimea after more than a decade of Russia illegally holding the peninsula. Do you want to find out more? Well, check out our video where we go into deeper detail about what Ukraine has been doing and why it matters when it comes to isolating the Crimean Peninsula. But before you do that, remember to subscribe to The Military Show so you can see more of our analysis of a resurgent Ukraine and its 2026 strategy for dealing with Russia. And thank you, as always, for watching.